Okay, welcome everybody. So the purpose of this is mostly to do Q&A and answer questions people may have about crypto and Bitcoin and so on. So there's basically going to be three sections here. We're going to start with a demo. It's a little ambitious, but I'm going to try to get people to get their hands dirty and send and receive some crypto. And then after that, I'm going to give a pretty short presentation. And then finally, we're going to do Q&A, which could go on for a little while. Okay, so for the demo now, I need, sorry, I'm having trouble here. Where is my, I guess I'm going to have to pause share. Okay, I see. So now, so back to the chat here. So I'm going to try to get everybody to send and receive some crypto. So the first part of that is I encouraged you, those of you who are comfortable with it, to set up a crypto account on blockchain.com, the wallet account. So what I want you to do is to go to that account, log into it, and get your address, your Bitcoin Cash address. And I have a slide on how to do that. So if I share this, here's the, my goodness. 1 second. Okay. So these are the instructions for putting your address. What I want you to do is open the account, log in, and then there's instructions here on how to get your own Bitcoin Cash address. You do have to switch from Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash. So this is a small gotcha here. But once you have an address, it should look something like what you see on the screen here. It starts with a little Q. Mine starts QRVSCJ59, blah, blah, blah. But yours will be different. And then paste it into the Zoom chat. And the idea is that then we will send you some Bitcoin Cash, about $5 worth, to your address. So you're going to get your Bitcoin Cash address, paste it into the Zoom chat, then we are going to send you some Bitcoin Cash, and then you can send it to each other. You can pick the address of somebody else on the chat and send it to them. There is really no substitute for doing these things yourself. You can, you know, listening to somebody else explain it is not the same. So you totally don't have to do this, but I encourage you to give it a shot. Let's see. Okay, great. So now I wasn't able to see the chat, but now I can see the chat. Hopefully you guys can too. Great. Oh, I see some addresses popping up. Now I see that there's some different formatted addresses here. So yeah, it should be the one that starts with a little Q.
Sorry, some of us aren't reading your directions.
Sorry, Jacob.
No problem. No, this is great. I'm actually, whoa, there's like a whole bunch of addresses appearing here. So this is all going great. Now, once your address is posted here, sometime after that, my beautiful and charming assistant, Daniel, my brother, should be sending you some Bitcoin Cash. And you may need to click this little refresh button at the top right of the, it's different on the phone and on the browser version of the wallet, but there should be a refresh button, which looks like this little circular arrow, in case you don't see the coins pop up. If you see that you received some cash, if you see your balance change, maybe post something in the chat so that we can see that it's actually working. Awesome.
So Jacob, is this going to our Bitcoin Cash account?
Yes.
Okay.
Feel free to ask other questions.
How many of these should I send out?
You should send $5 worth.
To how many people?
Everybody, man.
Or you can send a lot more to the Lillian account if you prefer.
No. Strict instructions. Yeah, we'll see. We may not get to everyone, but try to send it to as many of these as you can cover. Anyone received their $5 worth of Bitcoin Cash yet? Okay, Rami received 5. So there is a distinction here because when you send or when you look at your balance in the wallet, there's 2 numbers. There's the dollar amount and there's the Bitcoin Cash amount, the amount in the units of the cryptocurrency. Great. And so interestingly, you'll see this thing where Daniel is sending 5, but some of you are getting 5.03 and some of you will get 4.98. This is because the exchange rate between Bitcoin Cash and dollars is constantly moving around. So if he sends you 0.07007 or whatever it is Bitcoin Cash, it may be worth $5 at the moment he sends it, but then, you know, a couple of minutes later, maybe it's worth a little more or a little less, just like any other currency.
Hey, Jacob, on that question, so how do you think about that being like a replacement from a currency if it's like fluctuating more than the typical volatility of a currency?
Well, it's a problem. Yeah, that's a bigger topic, but I will touch on that a little bit later, actually, because a lot of people are focused on that. In fact, I guess that's really what I've been focused on for the last 8 months in my own project, is to make a stable coin where it doesn't fluctuate like that. But yes, for most of these cryptocurrencies are unstable, and of course many of them are extremely unstable, where, you know, you send someone $5 and then the next day it's worth, you know, $2 or something. So creates problems. But for $5 worth, I don't think it should be a big deal. Okay, looks like a fair number of you've got it. So, and again, the advanced part here is I encourage you guys to try to send to each other. Has anyone successfully sent some of what they received to someone else yet? There we go. Nice. Seeing some senders. Okay, any questions about this process or sort of what we're doing here or anything so far? There will be lots of time for other questions later, but questions about what we're doing with this demo.
Kind of a new...
Jacob, I'm on a Coinbase wallet. This is Z.
Hey,
is
Z.
it okay? I'm on Almond's Coinbase wallet. So
Coinbase
hopefully
wallet.
this
Well,
still works.
It should work, yes. There are some wallets out there that would not support Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash is one of the hundreds and hundreds of different cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin Cash has been around long enough that most of them should support it. To be very clear here, Bitcoin Cash is not Bitcoin. The names are confusing, but this is a sort of spin-off of Bitcoin. It's not the same thing.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Can I send them to the accounts whose codes don't start with a Q?
Great question. I don't actually know the answer. I would hope that if you do that, it will fail.
Okay.
But I can tell you that in some of these cases, it does not fail and the money is just instantly gone forever.
Okay, so I won't do it.
So it's definitely something to be careful about. In fact, my most stressful moment in the cryptocurrency world of the last 8 years was the day when I sent some Bitcoin to a Bitcoin Cash address. And then I had a really exciting few hours trying to figure out if I would be able to get it back. But thanks to a real stroke of luck, I was able to get it back, but it's definitely not something you want to experiment with. Yeah, you have to make sure that the address is for the same currency, the same coin that you're sending.
So does that mean that a Q starting address is Bitcoin Cash?
Yes. So the Bitcoin Cash, when Bitcoin Cash originally split off from Bitcoin, the addresses looked the same, which caused like infinite problems. Since then, they've kind of got their act together and have a separate address format. So these problems happen a lot less than they used to. I see we just had an address posted which starts with a 1. The addresses that start with a 1 are typically Bitcoin addresses. So the Q addresses are the Bitcoin Cash addresses. This is not a strict rule, but this is what people usually do, and it does help out. there's a 3 address, which I think is also a Bitcoin address. Can't remember for sure. And then there's an address with a bunch of dashes in it. That's something totally different, I think. So yeah, it's the kind of thing you really have to double check when you use this sort of thing.
Wait, so what does it mean? What did we do wrong to get the wrong address sent to you?
Great question. I don't know. I'd have to look with you. I mean, try following again the instructions on the screen. I think the ones in bold are the ones that typically trip people up. So if you don't switch, yeah, you may not have copied the right thing, or
So Jacob, this address that we posted is where you can send and receive whatever coin you want, but nobody can actually access directly, right? Like this is just your sender and receiver address.
Well, it's your receiver address, and it's only for Bitcoin Cash. So you couldn't receive other types of coins there. But you're right that it is only yours. So nobody else has access to that. And just the thing we're sharing here, this is the address. So this is the thing that you can safely reveal to other people. This lets them send money to you. This doesn't let them take your money. That would require a different sort of password thing. Okay. So this is something that is safe to share. It's a little bit like a bank account number. Like if I'm not
okay,
whether it's safe to share your bank account number with someone else is a bit. I've heard various debates on this, but basically, different banks, your account number would be different at different banks, and similarly, your address is different for Bitcoin and for Bitcoin Cash and for Ethereum and for other coins. You have a different address for each one.
Jacob?
So when you sign up for blockchain.com and you have a wallet address, is that a blockchain.com wallet address?
Yes, that's an address specific to them. That is not part of Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash.
Okay. It doesn't help that everyone seems to be using hats.
I pasted my address in at 8:13, but I haven't received anything.
Oh, well, my assistant really,
I just sent it to you about a minute ago.
Okay.
So if you hit refresh in the top right corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jacob,
So
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just looking at the Bitcoin Cash thing as part of blockchain, sorry. It says pending 0 of 3 confirmations. What is that?
Ooh, yeah, that gets really interesting. Well, so the system is not magical and instant. So in principle, if somebody sends you money, it is possible that the money could disappear in the next few minutes. It could be overwritten by a fresh update. They could send the money to you, and then they could send the same money to someone else, and then your money might disappear. This is obviously very bad, right? Like, I mean, if they paid you for something, if they buy a car from you by spending you some Bitcoin Cash, and you give them the car and they drive away, and then all of a sudden the money they gave you is no longer there, then you got ripped off. So the way the system is designed, ever since the original Bitcoin paper from 2008, the longer you wait, the more difficult it is for anybody to undo it that way. So if somebody's sending you $5, you can just do what we're doing here. But if somebody gave you, $20,000 worth of Bitcoin for a car, then you should wait at least an hour to make sure that it's settled into the blockchain and it has many of what are called confirmations. The more confirmations are on top of it, the harder it is for anyone to undo it.
So do we need
showing you the progress there, how many confirmations have happened since the transaction.
Do we need to wait for confirmation before we send it on again?
In some systems you do, and in fact, I've had this problem where that's part of why I chose Bitcoin Cash for this. Bitcoin Cash has focused on making it easy to use, so you can receive some Bitcoin Cash and immediately send it to someone else. But with some of the others, you wouldn't be able to do that, and that's always a little bit risky. If it was a large amount of money, you would not want to do that.
Okay.
So what are these confirmations that you're talking about? Like how is it getting confirmed?
Yeah, well, that becomes a longer topic, but the short answer is that the blockchain is a chain of blocks. It's a bunch of blocks of data, blocks of transactions that are added to this chain, which is growing over time. And every time a new block is added to the chain, that is one new confirmation. So the transaction that included the payment from Daniel to you was included in a block. When that block was added to the chain, the transaction had 0 confirmations. When more blocks are added to the chain and that transaction is buried deeper under more blocks, then there are more confirmations and the transaction is more robust.
Because it's been passed around more?
Because there are more blocks on top of it. And somebody who wanted to undo that transaction would have to replace all those blocks. It's, you can think of it like, it's like a pile of stuff and people keep shoveling more on top of the pile. And your transaction over time gets very deeper and deeper under the pile. So it's harder to get it out.
Sorry, Jacob, is
Yeah.
that, sorry to interrupt, but so is this why I'm seeing like for that initial grant of $5, is that why I'm seeing like 10 transactions in my received history for the Bitcoin Cash?
You're seeing 10 transactions?
I'm seeing like when I click received, I'm on the blockchain website and I'm seeing numerous transactions and it's representing the same transaction, but it's showing up multiple times. Is that what's going on because that block keeps refreshing?
Peter, this is the first question where my answer is I have no idea. I would have to look. I would have to look at it.
If we look at our screens, there's a ton of receive and send transactions, even though we've only done, you know, the one or two.
Oh, somebody sent a screenshot. Awesome.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I can look at that. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm seeing something like that.
All right, 1 second. Okay, let me stop sharing for a second here. So if I look at this, okay, I'm just looking at the screenshot. I mean, this looks like a bunch of Daniel's transactions. How did you get this? I mean, we don't have to figure this out right now, but I'm just curious. You know, in a minute we're going to move on from the demo to the presentation.
Okay.
This is great. This is the kind of thing I wanted. Where are you getting this screenshot? Like this list of transactions? This is what it shows you in the blockchain.com wallet.
Yes.
Yeah, this is what I'm seeing here. So I got the duplicates for both the received and the sent, and it's still duplicating for some reason.
Like if you go into Bitcoin Cash, I guess at the bottom it's all, and I guess the all is all the transactions.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a ton of more transactions than the ones that we've made.
The balance is still correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these look redundant, right? This is like, this may be a bug, but fortunately, if it is a bug, I think it's a display bug. Yeah.
Okay.
So I logged out and I logged back in again, and now I don't see a whole bunch of transactions. I just see the received and sent.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
What a piece of crap, eh? Huh. Well, it's cutting edge technology, but that's really interesting. I had no idea. Okay, maybe one or two more questions and then I'll do the presentation. Anything else?
I'll probably have more questions after your presentation.
Okay, let's do that. The presentation's pretty short. Okay,
I have a question.
Okay.
So does it matter if you send the Bitcoin Cash from Canada to others, or is there like an exchange for that, or how does that work?
No, the Bitcoin Cash is global. You know, it doesn't. How it may show up differently on your screen because it may convert it to Canadian dollars instead of US dollars. But when you send 0.05 Bitcoin Cash to someone else, that's like, you might as well be sending, I don't know, 0.05 euros or something. It's
right.
It's its own currency. So
okay, thanks.
Is there a reason why different people got different amounts, like 629, 498,
629? Wow.
Yes.
I don't know what happened there.
$6.29 or something.
So some of it may be that people are having fun and sending different amounts, but some of it is probably related to what I mentioned earlier on, which is when you send a certain amount of Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these others, the number of dollars that corresponds to fluctuates over time. So it might have been $6.29. I don't think it would have fluctuated that much. But for other people who are seeing $4.94 and stuff, it's possible that he sent $5 and then a few minutes later, the $5 worth of Bitcoin Cash is now worth $4.94.
Interesting.
Someone made a good point in the chat that it might be if you got Canadian dollars.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
$6.29 Canadian. Sorry about that for not specifying.
Great point. Great point. Right. So Daniel is probably sending $5 US worth of this coin, and it may be showing in your app in terms of Canadian dollars, but it's the same amount of Bitcoin Cash, of course. Okay. All right. Let's go to the presentation. So back to share screen. Okay. So just making sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, let me just make a couple of caveats here. First of all, I just want to emphasize that everything I'm saying is really just my opinion. Like, I do know the answers to some of these things where there are technical answers, but there are many areas, you know, whether Bitcoin is better for this or whether this coin is better or whether you should buy that and that. I don't have the official answer. So you have to just please only take what I'm saying as one person's opinion, do your own research, as we say, and, you know, be skeptical. Okay, with that said, so I have my outline. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was a bit about Bitcoin narrative. And I'm going to be talking about this very, very briefly. But this is, you see here on the screen, the title of the original paper that launched Bitcoin. This was sent by the famous, mysterious founder of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, when nobody knows who that really is, to a mailing list on Halloween 2008. So, you know, 12 and a half years ago. And the original title was Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And the title's not the end of the world, but the title gives you an idea of what they were trying to accomplish, or what he was trying to accomplish. At least this is hotly disputed. There's actually big fights about this within the Bitcoin world and so on. But in my opinion, and many people's opinion, what Satoshi was trying to create was something sort of like Venmo or PayPal or e-bank transfer, something where it would be easy to send money from one person to another, except with no third party. So no company that could block your account, or you know, that could refuse you permission, or that could impose some kind of fees or anything like that. It would just be, I send it, you receive it, in between us is a computer network, and that's it. And the analogy for me has always been email. Like, the idea that I can just type something on my computer and send it to you and you receive it, you know, typically a few seconds later, all around the world for free, is amazing. And we don't have that for money. So this was an attempt to build that for money. So the focus, when you talk about cash, when Satoshi included the word cash, most of us, when we think about cash, we think about spending, we think about paying someone else, payments. So this is kind of the original narrative, P2P electronic cash. And this also is where we got the, oh, I don't have it here, but the image I put for the event. You saw the PayPal warning that, you know, PayPal, hi, this is PayPal, we're sorry, but you're no longer able to use PayPal. So the idea there is PayPal is a company, they provide a service, but they can withdraw the service. Maybe, for example, for some regulatory reason, they're required to withdraw the service. It doesn't just have to be that PayPal hates you or something. There can be, you know, legitimate or legal reasons why they have to do that. But many of us have had the experience, whether it's interacting with PayPal or a bank or another company or an exchange. Sometimes they block your transaction and you don't know why, and you can't get an explanation. You call them up and you're on hold for 2 hours and so on. So Bitcoin was an attempt to cut through this, where nobody can stop me from sending to you. Nobody can stop you from receiving. That's the idea of the permissionlessness, and also the decentralized. This is a word that crypto people throw around a lot. The idea of being decentralized, there's nothing really wrong per se with having a center, you know, but the problem with a center in practice is that when something has a center, when there's a company or a person who's in charge, they can refuse you service. So by having a network that doesn't have a center, that makes it very hard to shut down, and it means that nobody can stop one person from sending to another. So that's the original narrative. And then that's still a considerable part of the crypto narrative. A lot of people are trying to use crypto for purposes like that, you know, buying things or remittances, sending money to other countries, making it easy to, making money as easy to use as email. But then there's the more modern narrative, which is, I would present as e-gold. This is the idea of an asset that you can invest in, and it will hold your money well. It will be a good store of value. So you can buy some Bitcoin and sit on it, and nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can print more Bitcoin. The Bitcoiners love to talk about this. They all complain about, you know, the Federal Reserve and the monetary policy and the U.S. government, and money printer go burr and stuff. They're very worried. Various people I know, including all sorts of eccentric cranks, but also including, serious people in the finance industry and stuff, are concerned about the possibility that their government might print a lot more money and then the money becomes debased. You get, the specter of hyperinflation, what happened in Zimbabwe and so on. I'm not that sympathetic to these fears. I've been hearing, I feel like they're often overblown. But if you were concerned about that, to the extent that you're worried that your US dollars in your checking account might become worthless over time or might lose their value over time, one way you can protect yourself is to take your money and use it to buy something that will hold the value well. And the very conventional, traditional answer to that problem is gold. So a lot of Bitcoiners see Bitcoin as a sort of modern, better online version of gold. Nobody can create a bunch more of it all of a sudden. And it's easy to buy or sell from other people, and it's easy to store. So it's like a better gold. This is what I think of as the modern narrative. Okay, so that's a very brief summary. Here on the right, we see, there's other elements to it. A lot of it now has become kind of a big casino where, people are trying to buy the latest thing, and it's like, ooh, I'm up 3x this month and stuff, and there's all these chat boards and so on. We see here the image is an image from, I think, earlier this month. I believe it is Elon Musk holding Gene Simmons of KISS, who is holding Snoop Dogg, who is holding the Doge dog. And this, I guess, I'm not sure what this represents, honestly, but it has something to do with the modern crypto narrative. And so then, let's see, what else did I want to say about that? Oh yeah, so why would you buy Bitcoin instead of gold? One reason would be things like a big chunk of gold is a security risk, is not easy to, you can't cut off a chunk of it and sell it to someone else. It's sort of old fashioned. But another reason is that gold has been around a long time and Bitcoin hasn't. So what a lot of crypto people look at these things in terms of, including me, is the market cap. What is the total value of all the gold out there versus what is the total value of all the Bitcoin out there? This is quite apropos because some of you may have heard about this, but today, for the first time, the total market cap of Bitcoin crossed $1 trillion. Trillion, whatever. These numbers don't mean very much, but one way you can get a handle on that is that the total market cap of all the gold out there is on the order of $9 or $10 trillion, depends how you measure it. So Bitcoin's market cap is currently, the total value of all the Bitcoin out there is currently about 1/10 of the value of all the gold out there. If you think that Bitcoin is going to replace gold for this purpose, then it's not crazy to think that Bitcoin will at some point match the market cap of gold, which would mean that it would increase in value by about a factor of 10 from where it is now. So there's all kinds of points on both sides of that, but that is one of the sort of the thesis for gold, for Bitcoin as a long-term investment. The idea that it may over time eat up more and more of the role of gold as an investment. Okay, now I wanted to have a brief look at a few of the different coins, just to differentiate them super briefly. So one way we can do that is to go to a handy website. There's a bunch of them, but one is coinmarketcap.com. And this is a site that's been around for a while. It lists a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. I believe last time I checked, it listed about 1,600 of them. They're very easy to create, so there's a lot of them. Most of them are worthless. And it ranks them by the total value, by their total value in the market. So here, for example, we see the top 5 at the moment, top 5 or 6. Bitcoin is number 1. So you see here the price. So Bitcoin's price is currently $56,000. And then Ethereum is number 2. The price is a little under $2,000. But the price is a bit of a distraction. I think people often get fooled by the price. One coin may have a price of $50,000 and another coin may have a price of 3 cents. But you can't really compare those numbers. It depends how many of them are in existence. Bitcoin, famously, there will only ever be a total of 21 million Bitcoins in existence. But some of these other currencies, maybe there will be a billion or more of these coins in existence. For example, Ethereum, I think, has a total, they're aiming for a total supply of something on the order of 120 million. So like 5 times as many as Bitcoin. So you can't really look at Bitcoin is $56,000, Ethereum is $1,900. So Ethereum is cheaper. This is too naive. A better way to look at these things is the market cap, the fifth column over here. And the market cap is the price times the supply. And this is a number, you know, there's limitations to this number, but at least it gives you a crude comparison. And what I want to really highlight here is we have Bitcoin is here, it's a little over $1 trillion. Number 2 is Ethereum, which is at $220 billion. And number 3 is Binance Coin, BNB. Binance Coin is having a good week. That's a whole drama of its own. Binance Coin is at $45 billion. So Ethereum is a little over a fifth of Bitcoin's size in terms of market cap. And Binance Coin, BNB, is about a fifth of the size of Ethereum. And then there's a whole bunch that are around sort of 30 billion. You have Tether, Polkadot, Cardano, Ripple. You know, we're getting into smaller numbers here, 15 billion. And then if you scroll down, you get to, there's dozens of these and they get to very small numbers. The takeaway I want to, the takeaway I want to emphasize here is that most of these coins are worthless. Like, I hope that there will be more of them that have a future at some point, but for now, Bitcoin is much bigger than all the rest. And Ethereum is number 2, but is number 2 by some distance. And Ethereum is way ahead of all the rest as well. Everything after Bitcoin and Ethereum is a bit of a long shot. I'm optimistic. I think some of those other projects will succeed, but most of them cannot legitimately be compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is by far bigger and more established than most of the rest. Just for curiosity, where's Bitcoin Cash? Oh, Bitcoin Cash is currently number 10. So Bitcoin Cash is $13 billion. So it's a little more than 100th as big as Bitcoin. So that's just a crude measure, but it's a good way to, if somebody recommends that you buy something, one thing you can do is pull up a site like this, coinmarketcap.com, and just see exactly where this is on the list. If it's number 200 or something, it's a very risky bet. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to get into a bit before we do more Q&A is just very briefly about how to buy and sell these things. So there are sort of 3 main operations, I think. There's buying them, selling them, and then what do you do in between? How do you hold these things? So in order to be able to do these things, it's important to understand the distinction between a wallet, an address, and an exchange. An exchange is where you go to buy them the first time. So you have some money and you want to buy some Bitcoin. I think there's some tool in the wallet we have, in the blockchain wallet, that will let you buy and sell crypto, but it'll only let you buy a small amount. I think for me, it was a $150 limit. And I think the fees are very bad. I would not recommend doing it there. Usually, if you want to buy $50 or $100 worth to play around or something, sure, you can do that. But if you're actually considering making an investment in any of these things, you probably want to get a better fee, to get a better price. And to do that, it's usually worth opening an account on an exchange. So which exchange to use is a whole complicated topic, but there are some basic defaults. In the US, the sort of dominant exchange is Coinbase. And I think Coinbase is like a reputable business. They've been around a long time and they haven't been hacked like some of the others. I do want to underline a little tip here is that if you do use Coinbase, my understanding is that you can usually get a better price by using the version of Coinbase called Coinbase Pro. The version which is just Coinbase, where you just put in some money and it just gives you some Bitcoin and that's it. I think there's like a 4 or 5% fee on that, which is kind of expensive, I think. If you open a proper Coinbase Pro account, which is not as intimidating as it sounds, then you should be able to get a better rate. So depending how much you're putting in, but if it's like $1,000 or more or something, probably worth it to use Coinbase Pro instead of Coinbase. And then it all depends on what country you're in. So for example, in Canada, a couple that have been recommended to me that I haven't used are BitBuy and CoinSquare. And I'm sure there's others. This is something I'm not an expert in. Previously, the most famous Canadian exchange was the exchange Quadriga, but Quadriga is one of the most exciting crypto exchanges where the founder died in India, and then it turned out the exchange had lost all your money and stuff. Very exciting story. So yeah, the exchanges are a good place. So the purpose of the exchange is generally if you want to buy or sell your crypto. But holding your crypto on an exchange for a long time, like years, is historically risky. Lots of exchanges get hacked or they go out of business, and you may get your coins back, but you may not, or you may only get a fraction. There's dozens of stories about this in the crypto world. These hacks seem to happen less and less often. Although as it happens today marks the 40th day in a row that I've been trying to get some crypto out of one of the exchanges I use. So yeah, so that's a reminder for me that exchanges are not always the best place to store these things. Exchanges should be for the transaction where you have some dollars and you get some crypto, or vice versa. In between, when you want to store them, you typically want to use some kind of wallet. The blockchain wallet that we're using here, I think, is quite reasonable for this purpose. There are many other alternatives. You can get little hardware wallet devices, which are like physical storage devices. But while a good wallet, like blockchain, is typically a safer long-term place to store crypto than an exchange, because with the exchange, you're trusting the exchange not to get hacked and so on. And the last thing I wanted to show you before we go to the Q&A is just to get people in the correct mindset here. It happens that right now we're having another one of these periods where, you know, there's a lot of crypto in the news and celebrities are talking about it. Lindsay Lohan was hawking one of the really crappiest crypto coins recently. So it's one of those periods where there's a lot of hype and a lot of excitement and a lot of people are making money. But, you know, one of the benefits of having been doing this for a while is you get some perspective. So here's some perspective. The last time I remember things got exciting like this, there's been a couple of times. There was late 2013 was my first experience of it. But the last time things really got crazy was late 2017. The whole year of 2017, the prices of these things just went up and up. And the press got more and more excited. And there were stories about celebrities. You have, you know, your dentist recommending some weird coin that you've never heard of and so on. We had that whole euphoric, frothy state. And here you see the price chart from early 2017 till the January 9th, 2018. A date I carefully picked. And if you look at this price chart, this was complete insanity. So Ethereum started 2017 at $8, and a year later it was at $1,400. Bitcoin didn't increase quite as much as that, but it's still, I mean, from $1,000 to $20,000, these were crazy numbers. So people were getting very rich, they were very excited. And I can tell you, having been there, that there was no time during this year when people were more excited to buy crypto than at the last part here. This is when a lot of the buying happened, this period around November, December, January. This is when I had people approaching me, asking me how to do it, you know, offering money and so on. And they, you know, they were buying because they were looking at a chart like this and they were like, wow, this is great. Then this happened. So this is what happened over the course of the next year. January 9th was the peak for Ethereum, and Bitcoin's peak was a little bit before that. Having increased by, you know, in Bitcoin's case, a factor of 20, they proceeded to drop by a factor of, well, by a percent of 80+%. So Bitcoin fell, you know, it went up to $20,000. It ended up just around $3,000. So it dropped 84%. Ethereum dropped 94%, which I can tell you, when you buy something that drops 94%, it's not fun at all. And then a bunch of these other coins basically ceased to exist. You know, they just sort of cratered into the ground and were never heard of again. And a lot of them have come back 3 years later. Some of them haven't. But it's very important to understand that this is not free money. Yes, the thing can go up a lot and you may make a lot of money, and some people have done that. But, you know, we've had this market cycle many times and it's very easy to get burned. So there's nothing wrong with buying something and the price drops and you lose some money. But, you know, there were terrible stories about people who took out big loans at the top here to buy crypto because they were convinced it was going to keep going up. And then not only did they lose their investment, but some of them lost their homes. You know, this is a terrible story. So keep this in mind. Right now, it feels like it's going up, 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 but it's not going to go up forever. I think it's for various reasons, like I described, the comparison to gold and so on. There are reasons to think that some of these are a good investment in the long term, but you definitely do not want to bet the farm on a steady increase. It's a bumpy ride, and you have to accept that, you know, it might work out for you, it might not. The longer your time scale, the more the odds in your advantage. People who have bought things and just forgotten about them for 5 years in crypto have all done quite well. But the people who bought and refreshed the chart every 10 minutes for the next year, sometimes had a terrible year. So that's it. Time for Q&A. So what I suggest is here, I'm going to stop sharing. What I suggest is go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions. I would suggest try to keep your questions short, and I also will try to keep my answers short. And please try not to ask too many questions in a row. Let's try to make sure everybody gets a chance to ask before anybody asks 5 questions. Okay, so go ahead.
I'll start. I guess looking at a few things, I'm wondering if there are any cryptocurrencies that are out there that are sort of further along that aren't deflationary.
Well, deflationary, so this is a bit of a, some of these questions are going to be easy to answer and some of them are not. So this is a subtle question. Lots of the coins are not that deflationary. So Bitcoin famously has like a fixed supply. It's never going to be more than 21 million. Lots of the other coins have a moderately increasing supply. Ethereum, the number 2 coin, has a fixed issuance per year. So there is no cap. Eventually there will be more than 200 million coins, at least according to the original Ethereum plans. It's not like Bitcoin where there's only a certain number that will ever be printed, but because only a fixed number are printed per year, it's at least predictable. You can be confident that it's not going to suddenly double in supply or something like that. So there, and Dogecoin, which is basically a joke and you totally should not buy as an investment, but Dogecoin has an inflationary policy. So there's a mix, but yeah, I don't really have a short answer to that. I would say most of them are, what distinguishes most of these currencies more than the inflationary versus deflationary, like the rate of inflation or deflation, what's distinctive about most of them is that they are predictable. Nobody can change the inflation rate, or at least not without some kind of very complicated, like the whole world has to agree to make the change. There's no one person who can just wake up on one morning and decide, oh, we need a higher rate of inflation, so I'm going to tweak this number. So it's more about, I would say it's more about the predictability than the inflation or deflation per se. Anyone else?
How much? Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, how much of this price rise do you think is based, like it seems like it's all just people investing and speculating, and it really has nothing to do with Bitcoin becoming, or maybe it does, like a realistic currency that people are going to use.
Yeah, well, this is the kind of thing that people in the crypto world have thought about a lot for the last 10 years. What does it mean to use a cryptocurrency? So to a lot of us who are sort of very influenced by the original Bitcoin paper, the electronic cash idea, using it is like using it to buy something, using it to transact to someone else, using it to send to your family in another country or something. To a lot of us, sitting on it is not really using it. Like if you buy it and it just sits there, it's more like hoarding than using from one point of view. But from another point of view, hoarding is a use case. How do people use gold? Okay, they use it for jewelry, they use it in dental work and so on. But most gold is literally just sat on. Governments, people, companies buy gold and they just hold it as an investment. And this is, I would say, is without taking a view on whether this is good or bad, I think this is empirically the main way that gold is used these days. People buy it to sit on it. So whether that constitutes use is like a matter of principle and philosophy. But a lot of Bitcoiners would say that is use, and that is how people are using it, and they're going to continue to use it that way. So the only other thing I would say about it is, I mean, I still hold out hopes that we will have cryptocurrencies, versions of cryptocurrencies, even tools for the existing cryptocurrencies that make it easy to send it around, that make it easy to use as cash, to make it easy to use for payments. For example, there's lots of work on Bitcoin and Ethereum to build elaborate technologies that will make it easier and cheaper to use it for payments. Right now, the reason we didn't use the top 2 cryptocurrencies today for the demo, Bitcoin or Ethereum, is that sadly both of them have been priced out. To send somebody just a couple of dollars worth of Bitcoin or Ethereum for fun, you have to pay a fee, which is now over $5. So we weren't going to have Daniel spending $5 per transaction to send a bunch of money for fun to you guys. And that's why we use Bitcoin Cash. It's possible that in the future, Bitcoin or Ethereum will develop technologies. They're all working hard on this. We'll develop technologies that do make it easy and cheap to send them, and then maybe they will be used more widely, like Venmo or something. Or maybe one of these other technologies, maybe one of the other cryptocurrencies will turn out to be very good for this and will be used instead. Maybe Bitcoin Cash even will, when people get tired of these crazy fees for Bitcoin and Ethereum, maybe Bitcoin Cash will become popular, and then it will be used for payments and not just as a store of value. But right now, the main way that cryptocurrencies are used, aside from just like totally random speculation, is as a store of value.
Jacob, I was wondering, you've said a few times this coin, sucks, this one's not serious, this one's interesting. What are the criteria that you are, using to make these determinations? Is this just, when you say that, do you just mean likely to increase in value over time, or is that part of it? Are there other factors as well you're thinking of?
There's no one short answer, but clearly when I said things like that, those were, the more opinionated and less purely fact-based parts of the talk here. But there are some interesting criteria. So two that I would highlight. First of all, I mentioned that the ethos here is decentralization. The idea is that nobody's supposed to be in charge. There's not supposed to be a CEO where they can come to the CEO and say, you have to change this or that. Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO. Ethereum doesn't really have a CEO. Vitalik Buterin, the founder, is very famous and very influential, but he's technically not the boss. But some of these others just have basically like a company that founded them. So the one that's currently number 3, Binance Coin, this actually, it may be a good investment, but Binance is an exchange. Binance is a company. This is their coin. So this is not really trying to play the same game as Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is basically a company's little pet project. So in that sense, people who are crypto ideologues like me would be quite snooty about a coin like that. They would say, well, it may be fast and it may go up in value, but it's not decentralized. It's just a guy who's the CEO of this company can do whatever he wants with it. That's a whole different game. And the second thing I would mention is just the sort of like, these are technologies. These are actively developing technologies. They're all quite immature. Bitcoin and Ethereum are the oldest, and the most established. They've had the most work done on them, and they are both quite immature. They're both still quite clunky. So there's teams of people working on these things around the world trying to improve them. Teams of very smart people, many of them volunteers, open source projects. Whereas some of these projects don't even have that. Like Dogecoin, which is in the news these days, Elon Musk has been pumping it and stuff. I don't even know if Dogecoin has a developer. Dogecoin was developed as a joke about 6 or 7 years ago. And now it's stuck around, but nothing new has been built for it. No new features are being added. It's just sort of a fairly obsolete piece of technology. And there's other projects that people are working on, but maybe they have a team of sort of 2 or 3 people, working on them part-time or whatever. These are not competitive with something like Bitcoin or Ethereum in terms of the brain trust. So part of being a serious project that you think might have a bright future is, I think you have to have some smart people working hard on it. A lot of these projects don't have that.
Sorry, Jacob. Okay.
Yes, Clementia, is that it?
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. Jacob, I'm trying to understand, what is the difference between a token and a cryptocurrency? I don't see the difference. I know that some are like, they work kind of in parallel, but I don't understand the concept.
I would say it's not a very meaningful difference. There are people who can draw a distinction between those. If insofar as there's a difference at all, I would say a token is often something that's issued on top of a cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're each their own network. So the computer has to run special software for those. Whereas on Ethereum, for me to create a new token which I give some funny name, Jacob coin or something, and then I decide there's only going to be 1,000 of them. This would be like a token I build on top of Ethereum. I don't have to actually have my own new blockchain. This is just something which is issued on top of an existing chain. So in that sense, many of the things that are listed on coinmarketcap.com are tokens rather than individual blockchains. But the short answer is it's not a very meaningful distinction. Don't worry about it.
Jacob, a question?
Yes, Rick.
This is very basic, but what if I don't want to send or receive Bitcoin or Ethereum, but I want to invest $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000? Can one do that using the blockchain wallet, or If not, what instrument does one use to do that, to invest?
Yeah, totally reasonable question. So that's what I was talking about with regards to the exchanges and stuff. I don't think the wallet is a good place to make an investment like that. The wallet will let you buy a small amount, and I don't think the fees will be very good. In your case, being in Canada, I think you would want to create an account on one of the crypto exchanges. And yeah, there were a couple I mentioned that other people have recommended to me, BitBuy or CoinSquare. There's various websites that will list these. And then you would like link up your bank account to it. You would make a deposit into the exchange. It would be a bit like buying a stock, really.
Okay.
And then you would have to decide, do you keep whatever you bought on the exchange or do you withdraw it to the wallet? Those are both legitimate options. But at least once you've put your Canadian dollars onto the exchange and you've done a buy transaction so that you have some Bitcoin or whatever, at that point you do own it. So then you would have made your investment.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Jacob, I have a question just in terms of kind of contextualize. Obviously, banks aren't just sitting around tapping their feet. They're also thinking about ways that they can kind of leverage their own excuse me finances to make their own cryptocurrencies. I know in Canada right now we're dealing with, or we're starting talks about the kind of digital loonie right now. So my question is, we sort of addressed like market cap and potential for the value and growth of Bitcoin, but ultimately, if banks start sort of implementing their own technologies, do you see these more as collaborations with already established coins, or do you see them as sort of delving into proprietary software?
Fair enough. Well, I guess I would give an ideological answer to that, which is that from my point of view, nothing a bank does or nothing Canada does is going to be a cryptocurrency. The idea of a cryptocurrency is that nobody can stop you from sending it. Nobody can create more of it on demand. Nobody's in charge. So when you have a company or a government that's in charge, it's just a different thing. That doesn't mean, the Canadian government, for example, or the Canadian banks might work on new forms of digital money. They might make it easier to send digital, Canadian dollars to and from people. And I think they've already made quite a bit of progress on that, right? You have, the e-bank transfers or something like that. We're still at a more primitive state for that here in the US, although we have companies doing things like Venmo and PayPal that make it relatively easy. So I'm not saying those are bad. I think being able to send money electronically is good, or just convenient. But when you talk about a cryptocurrency, it's supposed, as I read that term, that's supposed to be something decentralized, and nothing that is done by a bank or a government is going to be decentralized.
Jacob.
Yeah.
First of all, thanks for the presentation. A few weeks ago, there were some articles about some people who had lost their passwords or forgotten their passwords to their wallets and were locked out of their accounts, in some cases containing millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. And so my question is, what are we to make of episodes like that? As a regular person, that sounds terrifying to me. And I get the point that the whole ethos is decentralization, no one's in charge. But again, the idea of not having someone to call or write to if something goes horribly wrong is a real mental barrier for me to get anywhere near this whole this thing.
Yes, the famous, the person who's Googling on the web trying to find the Bitcoin customer support number. Yeah, there's lots of sad stories like that. Yeah, look, this stuff is kind of scary. I don't think, it's not like everyone in the world should be going out there and putting a chunk of their life savings into something and then, trying not to lose the password and so on. It's a little daunting. There has been some progress in terms of the user experience. So for example, I think now in the US, it's a legitimate option to open a Coinbase account and send them, send some money, wire some money to Coinbase, buy some Bitcoin and just leave it on the exchange. And that's starting to be more like, like when you buy a stock, when people buy a stock, they don't worry about like, oh, what if the stock disappears? What if I wake up one morning and my stock is gone? What if Fidelity got hacked overnight? These are things that in normal life we don't have to worry about. And I think crypto is kind of edging towards that. My experience in crypto is colored by some of my earlier experiences where there were, at one point, the biggest crypto exchange that had ever existed at that time, Mt. Gox, basically went up in flames overnight with hundreds of millions of dollars of customer money. And there were a bunch of smaller, that was a big exchange. There were smaller exchanges where this was happening all the time. So the sort of colorful Wild West history of crypto is a very kind of intimidating and you know, risky, real sort of frontier life. I think it's moving away from that now, and I'm hoping it's at the point, or getting at least to the point, where you can buy some, go to one of these very established companies, one of the larger exchanges, or even I think Fidelity. I think there's a way to buy Bitcoin on Fidelity. You know, Robinhood. There are relatively established companies that will let you do this now, where you don't have to worry. You're less likely to have these experiences that the early people had, where, yeah, these terrible stories of, you know, the guy who has, you know, $800 million worth of Bitcoin, but he can't find the password. I mean, I'm hoping most of those stories are behind us. So you can kind of choose your own level of risk. But, and if you buy some of the sketchier stuff these days, if you buy, you know, coin number 140 on that list, it'll probably still be quite risky. But if you buy some Bitcoin or Ethereum and you buy it on one of the main exchanges, or you store it in something like blockchain.com wallet, which has been around for almost 10 years now, you're unlikely to have the experience that guy had. You, I hope.
Jacob, just a quick question regarding I was reading the speed of Bitcoin, the transaction in Bitcoin apparently is very, very slow, because there's a limit in the amount of information that they can carry, and versus other currencies. Do you see that maybe Bitcoin is going to lose some popularity or traction, because it's a very slow coin versus other coins that could gain in popularity and more flexibility with do transactions?
I guess this is a big part of my day job, is like trying to understand the prospects of these different currencies against each other. There's definitely an argument that Bitcoin is kind of slow and clunky and obsolete, and some of the newer projects are spiffier and faster and have all kinds of cool new, different features. I didn't talk about this, but Ethereum, for instance, Ethereum is more of a software platform than just a currency. Ethereum, you can make a whole computer program that runs on the Ethereum network. So it's not just for like sending money around, but you can actually build software on top of it. So basically, there's all kinds of things that have tried to improve on Bitcoin and have tried to be fancier and newer. With that said, I've been kind of predicting personally that Bitcoin would fall into the background now for several years. And so far, I'm basically wrong. So, you know, if you look at most of the buying that's happened in the last few months, a lot of it was Bitcoin, and a lot of it was large institutions that I think the calculation they're doing is Bitcoin is kind of clunky and it is slow and it can't support many transactions, but it's very robust. It's not going anywhere. It was built by smart people. They're not going to make some weird tweak next month, which is going to break it. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. That's kind of carved in stone at this point. So it gives some of these large institutional buyers the security that they want. And maybe they prefer that to some of the glitzier features on some of the new coins, which are like very impressive, but maybe those coins won't be around in a year or two, you know? So it's an open question. I'm still extremely interested in it. I would, you know, I would be a little bit wary if you were going to make an investment in this space. It's a little scary to bet entirely on Bitcoin, because it's true. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, maybe Bitcoin will, you know, in crypto, we talk about, is Bitcoin going to be MySpace? Is what happened to MySpace, where MySpace came out and was a very successful social network, and then it was replaced by Facebook. Is that going to happen to Bitcoin? And maybe it will. Nobody knows. But, you know, as I said, so far that hasn't happened, and Bitcoin seems to be doing well. So, unclear.
Speaking of sort of longer term investment strategies, Jacob, first of all, thank you. This has been awesome. For folks who sort of just like want to put money in somewhere and park it, how do you think about crypto compared to the stock market as a long-term investment strategy?
Yeah, I can't give an authoritative answer to that one for sure. I mean, the short answer is that crypto is much riskier. Crypto, you know, you have to pick one of these projects too. You can't just invest in crypto. You have to pick some coins. And, you know, I could show you the coinmarketcap.com there it shows you the top coins now, but it has a cool feature where you can go back in time and look at like the top coins last year or even up to, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. And if you look at the list from 7 or 8 years ago, these are a bunch of projects they don't exist anymore, most of them. So it's all pretty risky. So that's the short version. I mean, almost nobody should be like putting all their life savings into this stuff. You know, this is it could go up a lot or it could go to zero. So on the other hand, to take a small portion of your savings and which you know you're not going to need for the next several years, and to put it into Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever, some combination of the less sketchy cryptocurrencies. That seems to me a pretty reasonable thing to do. It's high risk, but it's worked out for people in the past. It might work out again. So yeah, I think for most people the question should be, most of my stable savings should be in relatively safe things, like in equities, ETFs or whatever, like the sort of safe conventional thing that they tell you to do with your long-term savings. The real question is does it make sense to take some fraction of that and put it into something riskier like this? That's a personal decision.
Yeah, just a quick question regarding, it's a little bit maybe specific as a question, is regarding Ripple.
Yeah.
And because they're talking about that there's a lawsuit and it's going to be maybe solved in August, and there's a currency, the XRP, that is related is actually the cryptocurrency of Ripple. If the company Ripple goes down and for some reason with the lawsuit, is the currency going down with the platform at the same time?
In that case, I think the short answer is yes. I think the likelihood that the XRP currency has a bright future, even though the company Ripple goes away someday, this is very unlikely. So this is one of the big sort of dramas and ongoing debates in my community, in the crypto community. But Ripple is not as decentralized as something like Bitcoin. It's essentially a coin operated by one company. I mean, I think the technology is reasonable, and some things start as like, everything starts centralized. Bitcoin started by one person, so things start centralized, and then maybe over time they may manage to build a decentralized community. Maybe over time Ripple will manage to build that decentralized community, but so far it hasn't really done that, I would say. So yeah, you should mostly think of the futures of Ripple and XRP as very closely intertwined.
Hey, Jacob.
Yes, Peter.
Sorry, somebody else also asked the question.
Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, thank you. I just have a quick question for you. I've never used blockchain.com until you suggested that we, log in. And I'm wondering if you might be able to explain a little bit about what does it mean, if I have a certain amount of now, and thank you to all of you, a certain amount of Bitcoin Cash showing up on my screen here. What does that mean vis-a-vis blockchain.com? Do I really own this, or am I just an unsecured creditor to some website that I don't know? What exactly is the relationship of myself with this address versus the company versus what am I not seeing?
Yeah. Well, it's a very rich topic. We could talk a long time about this. And the short answer is it really depends on which wallet or exchange you're using. So when you use an exchange, you don't really own it. The exchange is holding it for you. You basically have an IOU. So you create an account on an exchange, you buy some Bitcoin, but you don't have the Bitcoin. The exchange has the Bitcoin. You hope that if you ask for it, they'll give it to you. But as I already described, that doesn't always happen. A wallet is more of a gray area, because some wallets are similar. Some wallets are essentially holding it on your behalf, and if you ask them, they will give you the password and so on. But basically, they are holding it. But the best wallets, the wallets that are at least most in the spirit of crypto, are what are called non-custodial wallets, which means that the company is not holding your coins. And blockchain.com is one of those wallets. So blockchain.com, they are basically a password manager. They are letting you manage the passwords to your own coins. And they never have those passwords. The passwords are kept by you. So what this means is, if it turned out you were some kind of criminal and the FBI or something went to blockchain.com and said, this guy Peter is a real criminal and you have to give us his coins because they were all obtained through crime, blockchain.com does not have the technical capacity to do that. They don't have the coins, only you have them. And there's pros and cons to this. But so in this case, blockchain.com is basically just a user interface to let you manage your own coins.
But sorry, one quick follow-up before I know there's many other questions. But on that point though, and maybe because I just don't know enough about computers, when they're showing me my private key or my ability to send money, how do they not have control over this? Am I missing something? How are they separated from what I see?
Yeah, it's a long topic. I forget a lot of the details about this, but I looked into it in some length blockchain.com is, I think their software is actually a little shoddy these days. They've kind of gotten worse over time, but when it came out, it was a brilliant piece of engineering. There was basically one guy who built it, this guy, Ben Reeves, back in 2010 or 2011. And he built it in such a way that their servers never see the passwords. So you have your user interface there and you type various things in, and all the cryptographic signatures and so on are done inside your browser. They never leave your browser. They never go onto the internet. That was how it was designed. And of course, they could, in theory, have a bug that meant that, you know, whoops, it turns out they are able to steal your password and steal your coins. But I don't think that's happened in their history. They have a pretty good track record there. It's much more likely that you would lose your password. That happens. But yeah, the way it's supposed to be designed is so that the key secret stuff, the passwords that you type in and stuff, never go onto the internet. They never leave your browser. And this is quite complicated to do from an engineering point of view, but they managed to do it. And now there's a bunch of others that do it as well. This is considered like the good way to do a crypto wallet.
Thanks. Yeah.
All right. So
Jacob,
yeah,
if I may.
Go ahead. Well, before you do, I just want to say, so in a couple of minutes, I'm going to stop recording. So if anyone has any really juicy questions, you can ask them when I stop recording. Baldwin, go ahead.
Okay. So you're talking about the sort of decentralization and the lack of control, I guess, that any one individual has over some of these currencies. But I've been also reading about some papers about how the big miners in, say, Bitcoin are actually exerting an undue influence on the currency itself because of how much they hold and how much they process. So can you sort of speak a little bit about that as to if you obtain enough resources, can you actually then control the currency?
Yeah. Again, this is like a huge topic, but the short answer is that decentralization is like a goal. Decentralization is like the vision, but there are many obstacles between reality and that vision. So none of these networks are as decentralized as they would like to be. They could all, in various ways, be shut down. They could all be, they could all have their code changed in various ways. All they really can hope to do is make it very difficult. They can try to make sure that you would require vast resources to get that kind of power. And they have different weaknesses. So for example, on Ethereum side, I would say that the main point of centralization in Ethereum is that it does have this founder dude, Vitalik. Vitalik is great. I mean, I'm a big fan of Vitalik, but Vitalik is extremely influential. If Vitalik decides that a new feature is good, he can't make it happen. But if you follow closely, you'll see that every time he suggests something, a big chunk of the community is like, oh yeah, Vitalik is right again. So that is a bit of a risk for Ethereum, that they have this one guy who has this outsized influence. Bitcoin historically had one such person, Satoshi, but now that Satoshi has vanished into thin air, now it's I think 9 years without Satoshi. So Bitcoin is in a better situation with respect to the developer decentralization. There are some influential people, but there's nobody as influential for Bitcoin as a developer as, for example, Vitalik is for Ethereum, or many of these other projects have like one person who's the dominant developer. For Bitcoin, the bigger risk of centralization is, as you say, the miners. The mining power, which I haven't talked about, the technical details of what mining is and why it's important, but the miners have a lot of power, and the miners are quite concentrated. A lot of them are in China. A lot of them are in close touch with each other. And even if their intentions are the best in the world, if, for example, the Chinese government would come to all of them and say, you can keep doing everything you're doing, you can keep making all this money you're making, but you have to make sure that this one user can't send any Bitcoins. That would put them in a bit of a difficult position. So yeah, the miners is the most obvious point of centralization for Bitcoin. So none of these are truly decentralized. None of them is truly unstoppable. That's more like an aspiration. That's what we're trying to move towards. And some of these projects are closer to it than others, but don't let any of them tell you that they're like completely unstoppable. That's just where that's what they're trying to achieve. Whether they're getting more or less decentralized over time is a very nobody really knows the answer to that. That's a very nuanced question. We could have a long debate about that.
Jacob, I got a juicy question.
Okay, well, time to stop recording. Hang on, here we go. All right. Hi, people watching the recording. Been great to have you.